other side. But the U.S. system is very different from that. The U.S. system was designed to be about negotiation, and it's a shared system of government. It relies fundamentally on the ability to compromise and to create bipartisan legislation so that it's successful. But what we have now out of this very ideological debate is a three-party system, all of which are in their corners. No one's coming to the middle. And therefore, we are basically gridlocked and broken. And that's why he says that the S&P downgrade actually puts a little fire under us, because we have to solve that fundamental problem. We can't continue to operate this way because there is no guarantee that our government will be able to handle political challenges like this one. Just look at how we've handled this one. It's been terrible.
Absolutely. And, you know, there is an email going around saying how to handle the Congress. Folks, it's kind of interesting. He said, Congressman collects a salary while in office and should receive no pay when they're out of the office.
Love it.
It's a very simple little thing. You know, by the way, Congress employment is not a permanent employment. It's a temporary employment, you know. And what they get generally is even if they serve one term, they get pension. And if they are in Social Security, they also get Social Security. So what they are saying, all funds in the Congressional Retirement Fund, which is where the pension comes in, should be moved to Social Security. I really like that. Congress can purchase their own retirement plan just like all Americans do.
Right. Why should we treat them as an elite system who don't feel the pain the way that the American public is feeling the pain?
That's right. And Congress, by the way, always gives itself a pay raise. They don't need to. They should be 3% or CPI, whichever is lower. Congress loses the current health care system and participates in the same health care system as all American people do. You know, one of the things Congress does, they build laws for others. They don't do it for themselves.
Of course.
You know, somehow they're above the law or whatever it is, you know. The American people did not make this contract with congressmen. Congressmen just gave themselves this contract, this fantastic medical coverage, this fantastic pension, and all of that. They should be taken away. And then they'll be like ordinary Americans. Of course, they're asking
and they'll be motivated to do the kinds of compromise that is necessary for them to pass this legislation. I couldn't agree more with this. I mean, we've talked about term limits on this show before, and term limits would be another way to motivate these folks from coming in and not just sitting there campaigning term after term, getting reelected each time, having these wonderful perks and benefits. Meanwhile, they're not actually doing anything but stymieing legislation from going forward.
Because they are so beholden to some of the people who have given them that campaign cash.
I mean, it was just an utter disgrace to me that the Congress decided to go for recess, leaving 4,000 federal workers in the FAA just waiting for a decision, hanging out, not, you know, with uncertainty about their paychecks.
70,000 construction workers also went with that way, and now they're going to pay delay damages to all of them. And of course, they did not collect. They did not collect the taxes for that period. So if one of your employees did that, you know, you will definitely fire them.
Of course. And
but here, Congress said, hey, well-deserved vacation, so we're going to go on and have vacation.
You know, I think the American public should really remember these lessons from the last 2-3 years that we have been suffering like this, because come election time, they really ought to think about those incumbents and whether or not they really need to sit there like fat cats and not make real change happen, which is what the American public is hungering for, clamoring for, and they've taken to their social media outlets to demand that of their congressmen.
I want to tell you one of the funniest things I've seen lately. When there's a very good opinion written by either Wall Street or New York Times or Washington Post, the comments that come back, they're immediately posted on a blog. And the comments are like 300, 500, 800. And I try to read those because, yes, the article has some very good ideas, but people have better ideas. You know, they have these conventions, Republican convention, Democratic conventions. They got their manifestos written, all of that stuff. But, you know, no one really pays any attention. I really think that that's the one document everybody should look at, because you'll find your friends in there. You'll find that Democrats will always protect the unions. You'll find Republicans always protect their billionaires and the others, or oil companies or whatever it is. But the idea is this thing should not have happened, and for that, their pay should be docked.
I couldn't agree more. Well, as you can imagine, the downgrading of the credit is causing all sorts of reaction around the world. You know, China's already chimed in and expressed their frustration. Of course, they hold most of our debt here in the United States. And India also is reacting to this. But you might be surprised at what they say. They say, India's finance minister says, strong fundamentals will help it tide over global uncertainty.
Oh, my God. They're worse than Russians. You know, Russians said America is a parasite on the world.
They did say that, and I think that was a bit harsh. But, you know, the Indians are saying, our institutions are strong, and we are prepared to address any concerns that may arise on the account of the present situation. Now, India can actually afford to say some of this because, for one, its economy is still growing, right? We're still doing quite well in that part of the world. So, of course, they can afford to come back and say comments like this. You know, the few times that the U.S. happens to be in this compromised position and they're doing so well on the other side. Something else that's positive for India, you know, Europe is in crisis, just like the U.S. is in crisis. And India, for the first time, will be giving $2 billion in aid to Europe to bail them out. Can you imagine that?
You're kidding.
I'm not kidding. New Delhi. India is set to fund bailouts in financially stricken Europe, marking a dramatic role reversal from 20 years ago when it went looking for money from IMF. The government of India on Tuesday sought parliamentary approval to provide over 9,000 crore in loans to the multilateral agency's new arrangements to borrow, or NAB, which is like, I guess, the new fund that they're all trying to pitch in for. Now, $2 billion doesn't go very far. I mean, Greece took over $300 billion just to try to repair their economy. So it's a drop in the bucket. But that's not the point. It's more of this idea that an emerging economy will be helping an established economy get out of their hole. So, of course, it is a big deal for India. And in some ways, I'm very proud of the country for having enough resources on hand to be able to help the rest of the world look outside of themselves.
That's very true. By the way, their economy is now a couple $2 trillion.
That's right.
Which is pretty big. You all remember Tri-Valley University up in California, where the population was like 95% Indian, and they were all from Andhra Pradesh, and then ICE, the Immigration Customs Enforcement Agency, they went out and actually put those ankle...
They raided the whole facility and put anklets, kind of like if you're a prisoner, they do that to you.
And that's what they did. Well, right here in our backyards, in Annandale, Virginia, there's a university called University of Northern Virginia. And the ICE, they had a raid up there. In this particular university, 90% of students are from India. The raid occurred because the Immigration and Customs Agency did not believe that they had the right kind of court